The start of Splatoon 3 was amazing, containing every base weapon from Splatoon 2 playable at launch. Some weapons we saw at the top of the meta at the time would be the Splash, E-Leader, Tetras, and even the rise of the Splatanas with the Wiper and Stamper, and even Gootuber for missiles? Okay, but the main point is that we had options available to us. However, one of these weapons would dominate the meta to the point where we would see even some casual players using it everywhere. If you played Splatoon 3 around the 1.1 era, you know what I'm talking about. Sloshing Machine. Sloshers have always been pretty good in Splatoon, and the only times it's truly been broken is when Slosher got a burst bomb in Splatoon 1. To be honest, I completely forgot about the time when Slosher got a burst bomb in S2. That was such a However, it looks like Nintendo may have learned their lesson with this bucket, as once they took this weapon off its high pedestal, it hasn't been quite the same since. So if you don't want your favorite weapon to fall off like this one did, be sure to subscribe to me for some reason. Okay. Also, I think it's important I mention that I'm only a low-level competitive player, so my viewpoints may be different than other people, and since we're talking about strictly competitive, no solo queuing is going to be involved. So why don't we just start? Let's walk through a brief history of the Sloshing Machine, as well as how it works in case you don't have great experience with it. Sloshing Machine is, well, a washing machine as a slosher. When it fires, it launches out a vortex of ink that does 76 damage once it hits a target, leaving for a 2-shot kill once directed 2 times. The weapon can also deal splash damage, which does 38 damage per slosh, leaving for a 3-shot kill if you're only hitting partials. The weapon can easily combine these damage numbers in various ways to kill faster. As an example, if you hit one partial into one direct shot, the weapon essentially can kill just as fast as you hitting 2 direct shots. Here's some other things. You can hit people pretty easily as you do have a pretty big hitbox. You also have some fairly average paint for a slosher. And you've got 2 kits for the weapon as of right now, being Fizzy Bomb and Booyah Bomb for the base machine, and Point Sensor and Trizuka for the machine, Neo, with the points for specials for the weapons being 210 for V machine and 190 for machine Neo. Now, let's talk about what made the Sloshing Machine so good. Vanilla Sloshing Machine was so strong because of how fast it was, having a reliable hitbox, and a kit that suited the weapon very well. Let me go into the kit a little bit more so you can understand why having Fizzy and Booyah is so amazing for it, as this plays a huge part later on. In Splatoon 2, we had something called the Kensa Collection, and from that collection came a weapon called the Kensa Sloshing Machine, which had Fizzy Bomb and Splashdown. This was a weapon that was really good in this game because it had an easier time fighting the shooter meta this game had, and Fizzy Bomb is the best bomb this weapon could have and genuinely gave it so much more potential. It helped with machine's paint, it gave the weapon great poking potential, and helped deal damage from farther away. And while this weapon did have Splashdown, one of the worst specials in Splatoon 2, the synergy with Machine and Fizzy Bomb kinda carried it to the top. Although this weapon was great, once the quad shooter meta became more established and a few nerfs to the weapon happened, the weapon was still definitely good, it just couldn't compete like every other class in this game couldn't, besides shooters. When jumping back to Splatoon 3 and the quad shooter meta being killed off, and Machine getting a very strong special, being Booyah Bomb, and keeping Fizzy Bomb from Splatoon 2, the most synergistic sub for Machine, absolutely shot this thing up to the top. And with not a huge variety of weapons being sought out at this time, we saw almost quad Machine. Thankfully, that was only for a little while though, as once we uncovered the actual meta for this game, that's where things get much more interesting. Once the Splash-O-Matic and Crab Tank meta became more prevalent, Machine actually became more important to this meta, surprisingly. Splash became one of the best weapons in Splatoon 3. It had great paint, consistent access to burst bomb, speed, and the best special in the game at this time, Crab Tank, allowed this thing to easily shoot up to the top, as nothing else could really compete with the main weapon or the kit, besides Sloshing Machine. This is because the Sloshing Machine was the answer to Crab Tank. No other weapon could deal with Crab as well as Machine could, since this thing had great area of effect, the best in the game at this time. And we also can't forget about Booyah Bomb, which allowed for great displacement, area denial, and much more. This and Splash had the best synergy in the game at this time, allowing both weapons to be considered top tier. Yeah, the quad machine meta did kind of die, however, I feel like that was a little more theoretical since it was only the start of the game. And I would rather have the Splash and Machine meta rather than just the Machine. But now you may be asking yourself, what killed off Sloshing Machine? As I've stated throughout this video, Machine has been a very strong weapon, and at this point, the devs wanted good nerfs to it. In version 1.2, they fixed an issue where the attack spiral would deal damage when hitting an opponent on the other side of thin terrain even though they were hidden by the terrain. Wait, deal damage when hitting an opponent on the other side of terrain? Yep, I've been leaving one huge bug out of this video this entire time. Sloshing Machine could straight up slosh through surfaces. And while this is not mentioned in this sentence from Wikipedia, this weapon's shots could also spiral through ink vac. Yeah, if that doesn't tell you that this weapon was pretty insane, then I don't know what will be. But thankfully they did put out patch 1.2 at a decent rate, so this bug didn't last for too long. Just a fun thing to know about why they wanted this weapon killed so bad. Getting back on track here, they made a small nerf to Fizzy Bomb, which didn't really affect anything, and they made a nerf to the weapon's points for special, going from 200 to 210. This wouldn't kill the weapon, but it would hurt the Booyah Bomb output from it. In version 2.1, they made even more nerfs to the weapon, increasing ink consumption by around 10%, and they made another points for special nerfs, now going from 210 to 220. This would once again hurt the weapon's Booyah output, but this is not the update that killed the weapon. This is. Once update 4.0 came around, also known as the sizzle season of 2023, Machine's sloshing speed would get completely gutted, now going from 33 frames to 38 frames. As someone who 4-starred Machine and mained it for about 8 to 9 months at this time, this nerf hurt, dude. It made the weapon feel a lot slower, it couldn't get its Booyah Bomb nearly as quick, and other AoE weapons like the S-Blast at this time completely destroyed it. This is when the Sloshing Machine started to die and go from a top tier to a high tier to almost a high tier to just a pretty good weapon. And after this day, the weapon hasn't gotten a single buff since. It actually hasn't been touched at all. We're in version 10.0 now. We would eventually get the Sloshing Machine Neo in the Drizzle season of 2023 with Point Center and Trizooka, and we did see it for a little while as Zuka was considered to be a super strong special in the game right next to Cooler. But once Zuka became a little less prominent, Machine Neo would start to become less prominent. The efficiency nerfs to the weapon still greatly hurt it. It didn't get an actual bomb, and weapons like the Carbon, Squeezer, and Tent would be able to do a lot better. And even the new Rusted Splatana Wiper that came out literally 2 months ago is considered to be better than it. However, this is when Centralize starts to step into the picture, as now I'm going to be trying to theoretically buff Machine back to a fairly good spot. First, we're going to be adjusting Machine's sloshing speed back to a much more reasonable one. So we're going to be bringing it from 38 frames to 35 frames. I think this buff would help out a lot because the slow speed of the weapon makes it a lot harder and honestly more clunky to use. Plus, it would help Machine's very average paint. Next, we're going to be bringing Vanilla Machine's points for special from 220 back down to 210. I don't really think bringing up Machine's points for special did too much to stop the weapon from insane use, and the last thing we're going to do is give it a third kit. Since more third kits actually seem possible now, I feel like this could be a good thing to help the weapon. This is the Gold Sloshing Machine with Splat Bomb and Killer Whale. Splat Bomb will give Machine a consistently good bomb that still allows for combo potential. This is because Splat Bomb's splash radius deals 30 damage while Machine's direct hit does 76, which leaves for a combo. I gave this thing Killer Whale as we've seen Sloshing Machine have it in the past promotional material before, and Killer Whale does help with chip damage, synergizes with the main weapon, and helps assist teammates in fights, which is what the Sloshing Machine wants to do.